How you been? How you doing? Welcome, That body sure is 9 o'clock.
Serious business.
Yep. Good evening, this is the Tuesday, March 18th meeting of the Union County Land Use Board. Call to order. Welcome everyone here tonight. You would please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Please maintain. Mr. Childers, please open us in prayer.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us safely together tonight. Pray, Lord, you'll bless this board, that we'll hear what's brought before us, and we'll have an open mind, make fair and just decisions. Pray you'll bless all the folks that come, and may we all have a safe journey back home. We pray this in your name, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so next item is established voting members, and all regular members are here. So if any action is taken tonight, we will have a full board vote. Any additions or deletions to the agenda, staff? Hearing none, motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed? Okay, we have next item, approval of the minutes of the February 25th meeting. Everyone should have a copy of those. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Have a second.
One second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item is the, Mr. Jensen has some information for us. A text amendment to sections 80.07A, minor subdivision applicability, I can't say that word, and 105-130 definitions of law to record Union County Development's ordinance. This is your turn, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So tonight, looking at this, you'll notice there's no land use board consistency statements or anything in your pack. This is more of a discussion amongst the board tonight to see what direction you might want to go. What this is really getting at is what a minor subdivision is, what it should be, who it applies, what it applies to. So right now, and I want to bring up another map, or a map, that wasn't a map. And I'll explain what this is in a second. So right now, if you want to do a minor subdivision in Union County, minor subdivision is 8 lots. That sounds simple, but it's not. So it's 8 lots out of what's considered to be the parent parcel. That parent parcel is a very specific date. So it's February 14th, 1978. So the way that works is this right here that you're looking at is a parent parcel map. These are old tax maps from Union County. Most of them are dated 1978. And you can see there's all of these kind of blue lines that you can see on this map. That is a parent parcel. Then there's all of these lines that have been drawn in here with pencil over the years, and you'll see these dots. Those represent minor subdivisions that have been done in the past. So you can see a lot of, little minor subdivisions. Some of these are 10-acre lots, some of them are minor subdivisions. This is just, these maps are all marked over. They were also used for addressing. But what you're limited to, let's say this lot number 2, because it's clean. It's like nothing's ever been cut out of it. This lot is limited to 8 lots total, going back to 1978. Problem that we've seen recently is that a family is running out of a lot to do a minor subdivision. So essentially the reason for that is I think you're running into a generational issue. So for example, I was 2 years old in 1978, so that's been a long time ago. So in 1978, Grandma and Grandpa might have owned that parcel. And if they had 2 or 3 kids, they might have wanted to give their kids a lot, so they did. Each one of those kids had 2 or 3 kids. They wanted to give their kids a lot. So now we're in that generation where Grandma, Mom, and Dad, and we're in their kids' generation, those grandkids' generation. What we're seeing a lot of is folks that are bumping up on that 8 lot total. And the intent was, you draw a line in the sand, there's a number of some sort. But we're seeing a lot of families who are trying to give lots to kids. And because they've already hit that 8th lot, going back to 1978, they're being tipped into a major subdivision. And what that means for them is they're having to meet some higher standards that are intended for major subdivisions, like when you build roads, when you build infrastructure, when you do stuff like that. I don't think it was ever the intent of the ordinance for folks that are trying to give a child a lot to have to put in street trees or put in, a bunch of extra stuff. They just want to give an acre lot to a kid. So that's really what this is trying to get at. And you can see here that there's a definition of a lot of record in the ordinance, and that's part of what the change is. This definition at the top, this is currently how it's worded. And this doesn't talk about 1978. That's in the applicability section. But essentially, a lot of record is, you see what that first definition says. So I took a stab at kind of maybe rewriting this and trying to reapply it to help folks out that want to maybe give a lot to a kid. So kind of this modified definition just says initially, this is a minor subdivision, initially a lot that is part of an approved subdivision, a plat of which has been recorded in the Office of the Register of Deeds, or a lot that is platted or described by meets and bounds that is an exempt subdivision. That's pretty important because you don't want to classify illegal. There's a lot of illegal lots out in the county. You don't want to classify those as lots of record. But this would get things that have been legally recorded by either a plat or meets and bounds that's an exempt subdivision. The description of which has been recorded on or prior to, it just says adopted date because that would be whatever date the Board of Commissioners decided to set. And then resetting and I put 5 years in here just for a discussion point. It could be 5, 10, it could be whatever number, the board and ultimately the Board of County Commissioners thought was appropriate. That way you don't ever really get stuck again with a date specific. You reset it every once in a while so you don't run into that generational issue. So this would set a date, but then reset it every 5 years after that date. And then, let me get to the next slide, and I think hopefully it'll clear up some questions. So the second section is the minor subdivision applicability. This is how you get the 8 lots out of a single tract since February 14th, 1978. That's what this is. So I'm just saying this should be changed. Just strike out the single tract since February 14th, 1978, and replace it with this definition of lot of record. And I did highlight this area of 8 lots, just for a discussion point. It's kind of a trade-off. That number is being reset, so you're not tied to 8 lots forever. So you could do 5 lots, and then if this resets every 5 years, then you could essentially do 1 lot a year forever as a minor subdivision. So I just put that in there as for a discussion point. That's not anything that is set in stone or anything. I just wanted to have that as a discussion point for the board. And that's pretty much it. So this would just reset that minor subdivision 1978 date to some date in the near future, and then have it reset every 5 years, again, so you don't run into a generational issue where you have people that are trying to cut out a lot for a kid that are running into having to bump up into a major subdivision.
I just want a little clarification on it.
Yes, sir, sir.
So let's say mom and dad owned 100 acres, and that's in one of them spots.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me and my brother. And I ended up getting 50 and he got 50. But from, what was it, 1978, that you go back to. So really and truly, even though each one of us had 50 acres each, it would only allow 4 houses.
Well, you get into a little nuance with lots. You remember I talked about exempt subdivisions, exempt lots. If you've got 100 acres, you could cut that really into 10. Let's say it's a perfect square. You could cut it into 10-acre lots, and not a single one of those would count as a lot, because 10-acre lots are exempt by state statute. Those are not considered subdivision lots. I mean, they're lots, but they're not they don't count as a subdivision. So essentially, you could cut out 10-acre lots and still have, you're only dealing with stuff that's less than 10 acres.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the 1978 thing deals with 10 acres.
Right.
So if you then
Things that are
if you
less than
split it
10
up
acres.
5 and 5, I
Yes.
got you.
Yes.
All right, got you.
Yes, yes. But like I said, the issue here is that we see a lot of folks that are coming in, again, like, let's use this as an example. You know, if this has, I don't know how big this tract is, but if this had 8 cuts out of it that were all, 5-acre lots, and then, and they're all brothers or sisters, and then one of them has a kid and they want to cut their lot into, a 4-acre and a 1-acre, well, now they're all of a sudden stuck doing a major subdivision, and that was never the intent of the ordinance. So you've got to, now they've got to meet all kinds of extra requirements. And it doesn't just apply to families either. We've had some smaller developers that have come out and done, 5 1-acre lots, but because the family that owned that property years ago had already cut out maybe 3 or 4, you're doing 5 1-acre lots on the road, and they're having to do some extra requirements that, the ordinance, it's required by the ordinance today, but it probably shouldn't have been.
Well, let me ask you another question now. What's the scenario you just gave? So you cut out the 5-acre lots. You got X amount of 5-acre lots. Right now, they're stuck to 8 total of houses.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if we change it and then all of a sudden one sibling wants 5 houses on their 10 acres? or 10 houses. Let's just say they've got the perfect
Yeah.
acre scenarios. Then you could basically paint yourself into a corner that you have a major subdivision that you never intended on, and it doesn't have it's exempt from the requirements of a major subdivision.
You could, so there's another part of this that is important to kind of point out, that this is actually a good lot to talk about it on. So you're still only allowed on a private drive. So this doesn't have public road frontage because these are the public streets. You're still only allowed today, and this may be addressed in the future, but right now, you're only allowed to have 2 lots out of the parent tract on a private drive. So this number 2 lot right here could only have 2 lots that aren't exempt, not exempt lots, but they could have 2 lots that are accessed via a private drive.
Now, when you say a private drive, what width are you talking about of a private drive?
20-foot access easement.
20 foot?
Access easement. We don't regulate how wide the
easement's
driveway is.
what I'm saying,
Yeah.
easement. So
Yeah.
you're looking at a 20 foot.
Access easement, right.
Okay.
Now, if you've got road frontage, like this lot, whatever lot number this is, then, you can see that's got a good bit of road frontage. So you could cut out 1 acre lots along that road all day.
I'm running into that same thing and just trying to figure out how to work out of it. We
Yeah.
got a 55 acre farm at Wingate. I've got a 20 foot road access right away because we're deadlocked. So I've got my grandkids, I can only put like 2 to 3 houses back there, but it's family property. And I don't think that's right because it's requiring me, I've got all this land, can't do anything with it for my grandkids. I think that somehow needs to be changed to free it up a little bit somehow.
And that's why I say I think at some point in the future, we probably want to come back and address the private drive issue, but that's a little bit of a bigger, it's a harder thing to address. I think this right now is a little bit easier, because you're really just dealing with a definition, and a date. You're talking about a date of 1978, advancing that forward, and maybe having it reset every so often.
Now, when you say reset, what are you referring to?
So
The
that
date.
that was the amendment that I
The
showed.
date from
The date itself will be reset.
Yeah.
every 5 years.
So that was this. So instead of this February 14th, 1978, right here, that would be taken out, replaced with the definition of a lot of record. And then the lot of record definition would be changed to essentially say, here's the new date of a lot of record, and then that lot of record, it will then be that date and reset every, I've got 5 years in here, it could be 10. That's kind of what I want the board to kind of discuss, is that appropriate? And if it is, what's an appropriate time frame for that reset provision?
Okay, but let's go back to your definition of the reset. Right now, the entire, what you call the parent property in 1978 is basically controlling the acreage of how many lots is plotted out on it now.
Yes.
Correct. So let's just say that you do the reset. Then would that take you back? In other words, you would lose the parent plot and then every plot on it, let's say it reset today.
Yeah.
Then you would not be talking about the parent plot anymore. You would talk about each individual
What exists today?
plotted piece of land there.
Yes. What exists today?
I somewhat agree with you, something needs to change. But we need to be extremely careful here.
And I also understand that that's not, you still have a list of dimensional requirements that lots have to meet. So it's not that you just get to go and create a bunch of lots. You have, you know, if you're an RA 40, for example, that lot's got to be 40,000 square feet. It's got to have 120 feet of road frontage, or it can be one of the two lots on a private drive. So, and so there's setbacks for how, I mean, there's a laundry list of dimensional standards that those lots have to meet as well. So
I'm confused though, because how many lots can you get on 10 acres?
it depends on.
You
it-
could get
it
5,
depends.
you
I mean,
could get 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could get
if-
10, but then,
If that lot's flat.
but you can
and
get
it's-
8 now.
If that lot's flat and it's a perfect square, you probably get 10.
That's what I'm saying, but you can get 8 now, so are we talking about two extra? I'm kind of confused a little bit.
No,
Well,
I don't want you to think about it as a specific lot. I want you to think about it as a concept of, you're talking about a parent parcel.
I understand that, I get that,
And-
but it looks like to me we're changing something that's potentially somewhere down, because if we change this, and there's already 8 lots there.
Yep.
On parent property, there can only be 2 more added. Because there's no way, how you gonna add any more than 2?
It could be added, okay, let's just say you got, broke out and there was 5 children and each
Yeah.
5 children got 10 acres. When you change this date he's talking about, you could actually bring that up to 8 houses. Right now, it would be 8 houses per each
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, I get that,
But if you change it to what he's talking about, you could go up to 10 houses as long as it,
but it's only 10-acre deals we're talking about here. It's not talking about 100 acres.
No. 10 acre lots are exempt. I only
That's what I'm
threw
saying.
that out because Mark was talking about if he had a 100 acre lot and cut it into 250s.
Okay.
That doesn't count against you. That's not a subdivision.
Right. Okay.
This is talking about lots less than 10 acres in size.
Lots less than 10
Less
acres
than
in
10
size.
acres. Yep.
So if I got a lot today that's 10 acres,
hmm
that's a parent lot that's 10 acres,
You could do 8 lots as a minor subdivision.
right now.
As long as nothing else had ever been cut out of it. Right.
Right.
You could do 8 lots as a minor subdivision.
And with this change, I can do 10, maybe.
You could do, with this change, this would essentially, your parent parcel wouldn't change.
Right.
If it had never been cut. So you've still got the same parent parcel. So you could do whatever the board decides is an appropriate number here. You know, it's 8 today. I threw out 5 as a discussion point. So whatever that number is, you could do that today, but then you're not locked into that 1978 date.
Right.
You have a date that resets every 5, 10, whatever years. So, you know, if you had 5 kids and you wanted to give 5 of them, all 5 of them 1 acre lots, you could. And then they probably couldn't because it's.
unless
That's what I'm
you was
saying.
locked in, unless you was locked in under the one easement.
Right, correct. Which
But
again,
that changes everything.
yeah, which again, I think that's something that the board probably needs to address at some point, but that's a bigger bite. That's a little bit harder to do. So you'll probably see that in the future, but today I think this is more about addressing those issues where we've got folks that are running into trying to cut out a lot for a kid and they're being pushed into a major subdivision.
So you're saying in 5 years, it could be reset again, it could go to 12?
Yeah.
You're not locked that way, you're not.
Yeah,
locked
and
in.
again, this isn't perfect, but because, you know, you could end up with, you know, 15, 20, 30 lots out of the parent parcel because it keeps resetting. But there is no silver bullet on how to deal with these. I mean, I've looked at ordinances. Some ordinances are not great. They just say a minor subdivision is 5 lots. And it gets abused because you got somebody that'll come in and do 5 lots today, and I've seen this. They do 5 lots today as a minor. Next month, they do 5 more lots. Next month, they do 5 more. All of a sudden, you got 15 lots that really should have probably been a major subdivision. So what this does is this at least puts a gap in there of 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever that number should be.
Lee, I'm sorry, I went to Piedmont, so you're gonna have to help me a minute. Again, you can't have 15 lots if they gotta be an acre apiece on 10 acres. I don't understand what we're talking about here.
I think what he's trying, what he did get across is the fact that the reset, get away from the 1978.
And that's
Yeah.
fine.
Go back to, in 5 years, you're not doing anything but just changing the date.
Correct.
To go back to
So,
retroactive.
right.
So in 5 years, then it can come back before and redesigned again.
Correct.
So basically, all you're doing is looking at the date is what you're
That's
asking.
well,
That's all
yeah,
it is.
yeah, essentially looking at the date.
Well, wait a minute, let me see if I got the, I see where Darren's coming from. Okay, let's just say it's hard to get our hats wrapped around family and then
It's a tough
builders.
concept, yeah.
But if you bought the scenario you was talking about, you owned 3 10-acre parent lots,
Okay.
okay? And then you was talking about they built 5 and then 5. But in other words, it couldn't be under one parent lot, because you said that had to, what you was talking about, had to be 10 acres or less.
It's no longer
So,
30, it's 10,
so in other
10,
words,
10.
it would have to be another lot beside of it to fall under another set of rules if you was putting them together.
I think I'm following you.
I'm not following.
Oh, well, okay, you can only build, let's say you got the perfect 10 acre
Yeah, yeah.
of land. You build 10 houses on it. Right now, you can only build 8.
As a minor.
And you was just
Right.
telling about a scenario where you seen where people would build 5, and then a few months later, 5 more, and 5 more.
I want to clarify, that's not here, those are in the research I've seen.
Right, but
Other counties do
regardless of
different ways.
that, under the scenario you gave us of this, that really wouldn't be possible on a 10-acre lot to have 15 houses.
No,
Okay.
not if it's RE 40, I mean, obviously, because you can only do 1 acre lots. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I kind of speak English. I'm learning and I speak English. So imagine you had a 20-acre parcel, that's a parent parcel, and somebody comes in right now and they say, what can I do with that parcel? It's got all the road frontage, it's got the acres. They could do 8 parcels that are an acre, and then they would have that 12 acres that would be a lot that
It's over
is
10
not-
acres
that
again.
doesn't count, because it's over 10. And then that's really all they can do with it. But what he's saying is if you do that reset, they may now have an option to work with that 12 acres that they could not subdivide
Okay.
unless it was.
There you go.
And then they could
Now you got-
also,
Yeah.
So
but
it
they could
doesn't-
also cut that up if they wanted to and do it in 3 sections with 20 acres like you talked about.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Now that makes more sense.
Well, we don't want, look,
I get it, I understand.
and I know these builders here, not mean to offend nobody, but with some of the way things are done now, we have to be really careful that we're trying to make decisions to help the family farmers and whatever to cut up their land. We gotta be real careful that loopholes aren't in it that creates minor or major subdivisions that takes us backwards.
Yeah, and that.
I mean, there's two,
Yeah, and that's why that reset provision would be set at some date out in the future, 5 years, 10 years, because again, you're trying to get at the generational issue of, kids or parents giving a lot to a kid. So, and, I don't know what inappropriate time period to, I understand what you're saying, I don't know if you might have somebody that bought a piece of property and cut out, 5 lots today and then sat on it for 5 years and cut 5 more out and sat on it for 5 years and cut, maybe.
Probably not. I don't think the builders in this room are gonna sit well with them to have to
Right.
wait 5 years to build.
And so that
5 more
was,
houses.
that was the point of having that reset provision at a, 5-year interval. I don't know if 5 years is the right number or not. It might be 10 years.
So basically, this whole thing is to protect the family, to be able to give land to family. It's not really meant to do any harm to anybody else, or do any harm to anybody. It's just
Yeah.
to let Rick give his land. Once he gets a road built,
Yeah.
you let him build a road so he can do
Yeah.
that.
Well, for a lot of the contractors here, with what you're saying tonight, how's it gonna affect them? They're into major subdivisions, so it's really not gonna affect them, is it?
No, you have a lot of folks that do, that do minor subdivisions. So we have a lot of smaller builders that will do 8 lots out of a parent tract. Or they might do 8 lots out of a parent tract and then come back later and do a bigger subdivision on it. So maybe, they use the 8 lots to fund the construction of a road, then they go build the road and build more lots on it, which is, that's perfectly fine.
But right now, say if somebody bought 30 acres and wanted to track out 8 acres of it and build it, is there a time limit to where they can come back to set out another 8 acres and do the same thing again? There's no time limit where they can come back or anything, can there?
Not as a minor, you do the 8 lots and
Right,
that's
so-
it.
But then they can come back and do it again if they separate it back out, or not?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, it's because
That's where I was getting
it's out of that parent parcel as of February 14th, 1978. So once you got 8 lots,
You're done.
You're done.
You're done with it?
Yeah,
Once you're a minor, that's it.
yeah.
But with a reset,
You could come back at some point in the future and do another minor subdivision.
That's what I was asking.
Right,
yes.
yeah, if you had a reset. And again, that's why that date of right there is important.
Yeah.
Is it 5 years? What should that reset be? Should that reset be 5? Should it be 10? And that's what I want the board to kind of think about. I think a reason that you see some folks here tonight is this. So this was thrown out just for thought. Currently, you can do a minor subdivision as 8 lots out of the parent tract that was created on February 14th, 1978. So since this is changing, and now it's if it changed and reset every 5 or 10 years, again, I'm just throwing this out there for discussion. Is it appropriate to just leave it at 8, or should it go down? It could go up. It's up to that's up to the board.
So is there any other procedure to handle the individual parent properties as opposed to trying to do a blanket statement?
We have talked about creating a sort of, I don't have a good name for it, but we have talked about creating we call it a major minor.
I do minor major.
Yeah, minor major.
It's a small major.
Yeah, where folks have been tipped into a major subdivision because they've exceeded that 8 lots, and maybe they're at 9. And we've talked about an expedited process for those folks. The problem is you still got some extra standards that you have to meet. So once you hit a major subdivision, and a lot of them aren't like, sometimes you don't necessarily always have to build a road or anything like that, but sometimes you get into having to plant trees. Sometimes you get into having to do tree protection buffers. So there are some expenses that come along with that. And just by creating a new process, you don't necessarily eliminate those, and you still have to set a number somewhere. You still have to say, well, a minor major is, X number of lots past that February 14th, 1978 date. So you're still potentially going to get somebody that's going to get caught by that. And so that's why we sort of pivoted away from doing it that way.
Well, the only thing I see eventually, if the scenario you've laid out, eventually we're creating an opportunity that there can be a home on every acre of land as long as it meets the criteria of putting one there.
And that's true. And-
Right.
And that can happen through a minor subdivision process or a major subdivision process.
Well, right now, it's set in stone from 1978. There can't be but so many.
As a minor subdivision.
That's right. So
You can do an
we're-
unlimited
we're-
number as a major subdivision.
That's what I was talking about. We have to be careful.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We're opening a floodgate here.
And again, that's why I want the board to talk about it. You know, an option is you could change it, an option is you could, and again, that's why I'm not asking for any recommendations or decisions tonight. I wanted this to be some, you know, the board to think about it and, you know, come back in the future, we could come up with something that was appropriate. And an appropriate response, if you look at it and you decide that you don't like any of it, an appropriate thing is to leave it alone and leave it the way it is now.
I think something needs to be done to change it, just, things change as time goes on. And as the generations keep going down, then, you know, the family land is kind of restricted what can be done with it. So I think something needs to be done.
I think we're on the right path to do something because right now, the way it is, that families are limited on what they can do, basically.
That's right.
And I agree, something needs to be changed on it.
I agree, having had Amy explain it to me. I think, you know, she would make an excellent planning director.
She did a good job.
I'm saying,
Different language.
I'm just saying. These college boys, I just don't know. Yeah, I get it. I get what we're saying now. And February 14th, 1978 was a long, long time ago. You know, Rick here was a young boy then, running around southern Union County.
Yeah,
Yeah.
barely had shoes on.
Yeah, it's February 14th too. You probably had a little girlfriend. And,
Well, the other thing about these dates, you can see there's a lot going on. Luckily, we did scan these maps. We had the forethought about, what, 5, 10 years before you? So maybe about 10 years ago, we scanned all these maps. But even still, I mean, you can see there's a lot of writing on these things. There's a lot of lots that have been penciled in. For some reason, there's lines that have been whited out. That goes back way before my time. I have no idea why some of these lines have white out on them. But, you know, that is what it is. These lots have been cut out. Where this is, these lots were cut out years ago, so.
Well, I got a quick, this area, let's just, what you got right there on that screen. How big an area is that, would you estimate?
Oh, gosh. These are, so you know when you look at your tax bill and it has your parcel number on it?
Well, I see Rehoboth and Sims Road there, so this is down toward Waxhaw, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
So these are thousands of acres of property.
Okay,
So when you look at your tax bill, you know you've got a 8-digit number on it that says, you know, this 05 is your township. And then you got a 147, which is your tax map. So that's what this is. This is what Jackson Township, is that right? I think. Jackson Township, tax map 147 in the Jackson Township. And then each one of these are the parcels. So these are large areas we're talking about.
okay, well then, what I was, and I think I was not clear on it. I'm not thinking that one person with a 10-acre lot is gonna make an impact on anything. Because if you 10 houses most, but if you looked at all this area, and then you look at all the rural areas of the county,
Mhm.
and then let's just say that you go to adding 2 or 3 to 4 homes on each one of them as applicable, next thing you know, you've built a crap load of houses.
Yeah.
And we have to look at the whole county,
Sure.
not just
Yeah.
one part.
Well, I'm satisfied with what you said. I'd like to hear what the contractor's got to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got some here that signed up to speak, so if you have
See
nothing
what
else
their
to share,
thoughts are.
and nobody has any, we can bring you back up if we want to talk
All
to you.
right.
All right,
All right.
Don't worry, we got Andy.
that's true. We'll let her speak.
Lee,
You can leave if you want to.
how many minor subdivisions do we know about now?
Oh, gosh.
Sorry?
How many minor subdivisions do we know?
Who we have on record right now? Do we know the number?
Oh my gosh.
There's
Hundreds.
hundreds, maybe
Probably
thousands.
So at one time, the way minor subdivisions were tracked was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they went up. And I think when we switched over to Evolve, that's kind of the online portal to upload plans and stuff. I think we were maybe in the 4,000
Yeah.
range. And some of those minor subdivisions weren't just one lot. Some of them may have been 4, 5, 6, they may have been 6, 7, whatever lots. But again, that goes back to, 1978.
Right.
So I mean, we've had a lot. And the vast majority of those were folks giving kids a piece of property. And there are some small developers that will do minor subdivisions to build a few houses on. And that's, that's a legal thing to do.
But you would say the majority are family to family.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Well,
And so, but that is a good point. I mean, minor subdivisions aren't a small, we did we pulled some data one time, and essentially each year there's probably 100 and something lots created by the minor subdivision process. So you're talking a decent sized development if you add them all together, but they're spread across the county. They're not all in one spot.
well, one thing I'll say, last meeting we had Alan Balcom here talking about what they were doing and what the commissioners had tasked them to do about preserving farmland. If we're not careful, this right here could actually go against what they're trying to do. And, we'd kind of be defeating the purpose of what their goal is right now by doing something like this. And I think something needs to be done, but I think we have to be extremely careful how we do it and word it, that we're not going backwards on some of the other steps we're trying to make to preserve farmland. So,
Some of that-
And potential, and again, that's why I just wanted to have this conversation tonight, because I knew that this may not be the end-all be-all. But what may be appropriate is for the board to, direct staff to come up with a study committee made up of, a group of people to really look at this issue and dig down into it and come back with something different.
well, I think we've already got the steering committee, and Alan said that they would welcome anything we send. Maybe we should ask them their input on this.
You could, yeah, or you could have a different committee if you wanted to. But
Right.
yeah, either way is fine.
I bet there's volunteers out there to be on that committee.
All right, let's move on. First person up here is Mr. Tanner. Russell Tanner, please.
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm a small builder. I do a couple of small minor subdivisions here and there. Mostly work down in the Waxhaw, Parkwood area. That's where I'm from. That's where I was raised. I went to school there. My wife's a teacher there at the middle school. So we're indoctrinated into the county. And as a smaller builder, And I'm not trying to throw off on any larger builders or anything, we just kind of do things a little bit differently. You know, we can't really afford to go in and put these big, large subdivisions in, just don't have the capital to do that kind of thing. And I kind of feel like, and from a public standpoint, if you take away, and I talked to Lee about this yesterday on the phone, he was gracious enough to call me back and to kind of explain it to me, and that's kind of like having a hard time like you guys were for a little while, trying to figure out what reset means and what all that does, and I think that's needed desperately, because you're stuck in that 1978 thing right now, and like I said, you got farmers or family members trying to give off a piece of property to the kids, and they can't do it because it's been split up. I do a little bit of development down in Lancaster County, and they got the same issue, same thing. So they go back 30 years. They just go back 30 years from wherever the date is. And they're addressing the same issue down there. They're wanting to change how they reset that time period. So it's a thing, you know, region-wide, I think people are dealing with. It's just a part of, I guess, times changing. So I believe that that part is needed, and I think most of the, you know, people in this room probably would agree with that wholeheartedly. But as far as taking the number of lots away for a minor, I think that's where most of our issue would be, or my issue would be, going back from 8 to 5. It feels like we're going backwards there, and I'm not real sure why that correlates to resetting the lots. And I think Lee was open to whatever that change may be, so I think I was encouraged to hear that, and I hope you guys are too. It feels like we're kind of forcing the public to have to go to the big box subdivisions rather than go to a small quality builder like yourself, somebody who's going to stay in the community and build in the community. It kind of limits them on what they're able to do. So it kind of pushes people towards that rather than pushing them toward, you know, local small builder like myself. So I would encourage you not to really, if you're going to change anything, don't change the number of lots we can have, because it's, you know, it really is, it not only hurts the smaller builder, the smaller developer, also hurts the public in a way, in that they have less choice now. So if you would at least consider that. And the other issue that I thought, I don't know what my time is, but that private drive rule where you only have 2 lots every 30 years on a private drive, that really needs to be, that's the bigger issue to me than anything in this room. That really limits a lot of people that are old folks in this county, had property generations, and they can't do anything with that.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know if that works together with the number of lots you can have, or however that works.
Right.
But that really needs to be addressed. I've got one situation down there off of Quarter Road where a family, the guy's a chicken farmer. He's been here for years. I mean, whole generations. And trying to give a lot to his son, and can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it. So,
All right. Well, your time's up, but thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hear you. Next person is Mr. Mike McGee.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. As I said, I'm Mike McGee, lifelong resident of this county. I've lived here all my life. Got businesses here in the county. Got a few grandchildren too, a few children, and I have 33 grandchildren, so I need a place for them to be able to live here in this county. But there's several things, and I just did a minor subdivision for my grandchildren so that they could do it. I ended up, but there's been a lot of stuff saying, you know, we can have lots on every acre of land. That's basically not feasible here, especially in Union County, because you can't get it a perk. This subdivision that I just did was like 38 acres. I was able to get 7 perks out of that. Now, if you go back to 5 lots on your major or on my minor, I would have had to have done a major subdivision, which my engineering costs would have went through the roof. I'd have had to have tree surveys done, all manner of things done on that, even though these are 4 and 5, 6 acre lots. Some of them, the smallest one was a 2 acre. I had one 2 acre lot. But this would increase the cost tremendously. And what my goal over the years, I've done several little projects around through this county, is to try to keep it affordable for people to be able to buy a house. My grandkids, how in the world, you know what a lot costs today? You can't find a lot in this, if you can find any right now, an acre lot somewhere for $100,000, you're doing great. And we need to be trying to figure out ways to keep that cost down so that our grandkids and your neighbors and everybody else can be able to live in this county instead of trying to increase the cost, guys. And, you know, another thing that really impacts how many houses you can put on there is also what kind of road frontage you have. Now, I can go in there and I can do a major and spend the money and put roads in, and you can cover that place up. But if you're doing a minor, it's still gonna be 8 lots. Now, if you got and you gotta have the road frontage to be able to do that, or then you're gonna be limited with that one private driveway, and that's not good. Because you may have perks back in the back there somewhere, and not on the frontage there. So you need to have it where you could have more than one private drive even on that piece of property to be able to go in there. These are some things that, you know, I'd love to be able to say and have one of these meetings for it. I used to be on the planning board, worked with this young fella years ago, and there's a lot that we would like to help to educate this board, some of my fellow builders and developers and stuff, and we're not out here. Just as Rusty said, we're small builder compared to, and the only way we can get lots basically now is doing this kind of thing here. So we'd appreciate you considering these things, and thank you for your time.
Well, wait just a second.
Question?
Sir,
Yes.
Mr. McGee, why don't y'all guys put your head together on your opinion of this and bring it back to us?
And
I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I welcome y'all's opinion.
Absolutely.
we would definitely do that. Matter of fact, you know, this is just some of the things that we just learned about this was coming up. And we would love to be able to have the opportunity to do that.
What I'd like to see
I'd
is
love to hear
a
from
group of you guys get together with us, and we'll just sit down and open discuss it.
Have no problem with that. It's
Is
a
that
very
something
good
that happen,
thing.
Lee?
Well, yeah, what I would suggest if you
Thank you,
wanna-
Mike.
What I would suggest if you're gonna do that is, select 3 people from the board, so you're not having a quorum.
Okay.
3 people from the board, and, you know, however many folks wanted to come from the development community, and we'd have a staff person there and kind of talk about it.
Well, what if we had like just a work session where we can all,
Yeah,
there,
do that too.
it could be publicized, I don't.
Yeah, you mean like
Yeah.
like a regular meeting at night?
Yeah, like, you know, we sit around and talk, and he could bring the cakes from over there.
We
and-
can come over to Max, and I'll fix you up.
Hey, Lee, I have a question. I have a question with
Let's-
something he is talking about. All right, if somebody builds a major subdivision, and a lot of these has one entrance into them, but then they've built all these little roads, but they're really tying back into the main road, there's just one entrance, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, I'll
lot
just
of
say it is.
Yeah.
Then what would like Rick have to do for his road to be like that? I mean, I don't understand why one man's road's any different from another man's road.
So the issue that Rick has is kind of what Mr. McGee's talking about. Again, it uses that same February 14th, 1978 date. On one of those parent tracks, you're allowed to have 2, and this has been a rule in Union County for a long time. You can have 2 lots out of that private drive that are served, 2 lots out of that parent tract that are served by a private drive. And that's what Rick's running into, because you said your lot's landlocked, right? So he can only do 2 lots on that property that's served by a private drive. Now, if he went in there and built the state-maintained road, which is a 60-foot right-of-way and 20-something feet of asphalt, and, you know, so you gotta have some depth, and it's expensive.
You got a big one, $2, Ricky?
So, but that's how he could get more. But today, he can only do 2 lots on a private drive, and that's what that's what Mike's talking about. And that is, I was talking about it a little bit, and yeah, it does need to be addressed. That's a little bit tougher because do you allow more lots on a private drive, or is it, another private drive that's got to, have some spacing in between, based on some speed limit standard? There's a number of ways you could do it, but.
I ran into that very situation on the parcel I was just talking to you about. The family had sold an acre of land for their son to build on before I ever bought it. He had the right of way in there to it, so then I could only put one more house somewhere back off the road. I couldn't do anything else because of that. Thank you for your
All right,
time.
thank you. I'll make a note when you talk about that. Okay, Jonathan Meek is the last person signed up.
Good evening, Board.
Hello.
My name is Jonathan Meek. I'm an attorney at Meek Law Firm in Union County. I'm also a resident here in Union County, and I've probably dealt with most of these gentlemen back here on all kinds of different projects, from building to their land use issues and things like that. And I've come before you guys a couple of times, at least now, talking about land use issues. I guess what I'm really coming here to talk about tonight is that I just would love to see if this is going to be a topic of discussion amongst the one with the 2 parcels down a private road and all of that stuff. If this is the time that we can do it, then I'm going to raise my hand and volunteer to help try to organize and get these people together, because there are a lot of good things, I think, that are coming to fruition in the county that need to have good minds and good collaborative thought behind how we're going to run it going forward. And we would appreciate you very much for us. The input that I came up with just sitting here and listening was specifically things like maybe we go to 10 subdivisions, but make it match the level of the lowest amount of space that you can put in a pre-zoned area. Like if it's RA 40, give them the total of 10 instead of 8, leaving them with that 2 acres hanging out. I've got all kinds of things that were percolating in my mind about how this could be done, and I did want to bring just sort of an anecdotal story to you. I am also part of a very, very, very small builder that now is not doing much in the area. We had a family that sold us a piece of property. They had gotten it delivered to them via will, and the will had divided up about 8 times. And they were trying to find out for years how they were going to be able to figure out what to do with it. And they couldn't use it. They didn't do anything with it. And finally, they decided to sell. And we were there in the right place to buy. So we bought. We decided we were going to take a look at it. We had a surveyor go out there and map it out. It ended up being a 6-acre lot that could be divided, perk sites and everything, down to 5. Well, because there's other divisions that happened, we found ourselves squarely in the need to do a major subdivision. So immediately, we went from being somebody who had bought a piece of property that thought we were going to be able to do the 1-acre lots, 1.5-acre lots. Most of it had road frontage. There was only one lot off the back that was going to be served by a private drive. All of a sudden, our costs for that went up, I would like to say immeasurably, just due to heartache, but we could physically actually give you an accounting of those things, but it was a 10-fold raise. We went up from having to do a specific type of survey to another specific type of survey to get it all flatted out. We had to go before environmental in a little different way than what we had to do. We had to go and take ours that had mostly street frontage and no additional roads except for that private drive in front of DOT and have them look at me sideways for 5 weeks because they didn't understand why I was there. They had nothing that they could do for me. There was no question that they were asking that I could answer because none of the things actually applied. I didn't need them for anything, and they didn't need me in front of them wasting their time. So in the end, it was 5 weeks wasted on that. In addition to that, we did have to do the tree issues and take care of those, which going through that, from that standpoint, we had a cornfield that was basically being sold to us. Didn't have a single tree on it. Now we have the situation of needing to put trees on that because we had to go through that process. So we've got like 5 2.5 caliper trees and a tree bond of $11,800 is still in the county's pocket because of what we had to do there. Now I'm not saying it's right or wrong. We followed through that process and learned a heck of a lot about it. By being a major subdivision, it didn't change whether or not we could do that amount of lots, okay? We wanted to come out there, we were a small builder, we were gonna find our way to do the lots and put a house on those, and that's what it was for. It was a way for that family to take and make use of this by turning that lot into cash, and for us to turn it into homes that we think people in this community love, the ones that we put on there before and now. And so working with a lot of these gentlemen back here and the people that are here, I think that it's an awesome thing to do, but I think if having the opportunity, we would love to talk more.
Thank you, sir.
We'd love to.
Yes.
You know, sometimes the regulations make a nice home, the home itself be a lot less because of what you have to put into getting it built.
Yeah. All right, so board, if it's all right with you all, I would like to direct staff to put together a work session type meeting where we could invite this group to come, bring whoever. We all just sit around and it'd be informal, and we'll open the meeting as we have to by law, but basically just chat. Y'all bring some ideas to us and we'll listen, and we'll all make notes. Staff will be there, make sure Bjorn's there, and we'll make notes and see what we come up with.
Make sure Amy's there to.
Well, Amy has to be there to fix it.
Maybe can interpret.
On the surface, I agree with Mike, though. I don't know that we should back away from 8 to 5.
Yeah,
It doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and that's.
that's part of what we'll be able to talk
But
about.
I do like the idea of the reset.
I do too.
Yeah.
The arbitrary date's crazy.
I mean, if we're gonna sit around and talk about it, we might as well talk about private drives.
I think that's, yeah, obviously.
Thank you.
I actually think that's probably higher on the need-to-do list than the other.
And let's be careful not to bring everything y'all want. I love you, but we might, we can't be there all night, but we'll certainly bring a list of things if y'all have questions, and we can talk about it later, but let's focus on those two issues.
We could put a time limit on it
Yeah.
also.
Do you want that to be at a regular meeting, or do you want a special meeting to do that?
I think we should do a special meeting.
think
I
we
don't think
should
we
do
want
A
to.
special meeting for it.
All right, then, Amy, we can get maybe a
Yeah.
dual poll or something out to them.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could do that, and these guys don't do nothing, so they'll be,
Now, do you know everybody that's here, or do you need to get their names so you
I
can
know,
inform them?
I know most everybody.
if we get it to Mike McGee, I'm confident everybody will know about it, right? Am I right, Mike? Yeah, okay. All right, okay, we have planning staff report, anything?
Y'all are welcome to leave if you want to. The rest
Yeah.
of it's just planning staff and so forth.
The board.
Y'all are welcome to stay if you want to, but you're welcome to leave.
Thank y'all for coming.
Board approved the rezoning at Tarleton Mill up at the Cold Mountain store. Yep.
Okay.
So the mini stores, they approved that one. Gold Branch actually withdrew late yesterday afternoon. They just withdrew their rezoning application, so. the
That was
board-
for the 725 hours.
Right, so there was no vote, but since the board withdrew after you considered it, they still have to wait a year before they can resubmit it.
To Union County.
Yes, correct, yes.
So right now it's tabled out, just withdrew everything.
They withdrew everything, but
Good.
they, yes,
Yeah.
Good.
Anything else?
that's it.
All right, any comments? All right, hearing none, I have a motion to adjourn. Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Now, did the astronauts splash down yet?
I don't know, did they?
Thank y'all.
Did they?